This weekend on the original Rochester Press Box.
I'm Sal Maiorana from the Democrat Chronicle. Marshawn Lynch is not my favorite guy, and I'll tell you why.
I'm John Ditullio. What's at stake for the Seattle defense and their quarterback, Russell Wilson?
And I'm Mike Catalana. So many Super Bowl memories for so many different reasons.
And I'm Bill Pucko. Character assassination is a tricky business. Join us this weekend on the original Rochester Press Box. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Super Bowl edition of the original Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko with you, as always, joined by Fox Sports 1280's John Ditullio.
Wow. Billy.
Got it.
Tell
All
me
right.
Super Bowl Sunday. You brought your A game,
Stop
buddy.
there.
13 WHAM TV's Mike Catalana.
Excellent, yeah.
And the Gannett Media Group, Democrat Chronicle. I feel embarrassed identifying you just as being a newspaper reporter. You're a regular contributor on 2 radio programs, 2 TV shows, and you have the highest profile column in Rochester, doing the Bills for how many years now?
25 years for the king of all media in Rochester.
And you absolutely are. Sal Maiorana joins
Yes.
us. This is only fitting during the Super Bowl season. Before we get into this year's game, I wanted to ask you two guys, since you were there for the 4 Bills championships and the Super Bowls there, your most enduring memory of covering that team in the Super Bowl, Sal.
Well, the most enduring memory was the first game. I mean, that was just, such a remarkable week with the war going on. And I'll tell you, I've always told this story whenever I'm asked about this. That was the only time in my professional career where when the game ended, I didn't quite know what to think or do. I felt like I just gotten punched in the stomach. Because growing up in Buffalo, I have to admit, I was kind of rooting for the Bills in that first Super Bowl. And to have it end the way it did, even as a professional covering the game, it was like, just the air let out of the balloon. So it took about 10 minutes to recover and get it together and go down to the locker room and do things. So that was really the most enduring memory that I have, is that first one. Nothing will ever top that for me.
Yeah, I'm with Sal on being the first game because it was so different. And I go back to the AFC Championship game and the strange circumstances of that day. 51-3 in the snow. The game's over at halftime. The war has begun, and they're cutting away from coverage to talk about the beginning of the war. But keep in mind, there was no week in between. So we were leaving the next morning to go to Tampa, to go to the game. Everything was new. We didn't really know what we were doing. Had never covered a Super Bowl. But to Sal's point about when the game ended, the blank look on the faces, and we've seen video of a lot of the guys, but I remember standing there watching the players walk off. Never seen anything like it until home run throwback. And there was a little more anger in home run throwback.
Well, that was the thing. The Super Bowl 25, it was a sad reaction in the locker room. Music City Miracle was anger. They were mad.
Stunned, but
that
angry.
happened.
Yeah,
different
John,
different
on the
deal.
same subject, since you deal with us on the radio show, we just passed the anniversary of Scott Norwood's miss in that game. If he makes that field goal, how is our perception of the franchise change?
Completely different. Well, Scott Norwood's life is completely different. And the Bills, now you need, for quarterbacks, they need to win a Super Bowl. So do franchises. Now you're lumped in with the likes of the Vikings. You're lumped in with the likes of the Browns and the Lions. You are quote-unquote losers. You can't win the big game. I don't know if they go to 4 in a row, but I think if you're a Bills fan, you'll definitely take at least a Super Bowl, a Lombardi trophy, rather than going to 4 straight.
I'll do one more then. We got 4 in a row.
Yeah.
You lose all 4. If you win the first one, how many of those 4 are you willing to give back to get the first one? What's it worth?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure, because it was a great 4 years. I mean, it ended in heartbreak for Bills fans 4 years in a row. But I'll tell you what, those fans enjoyed that 4-year period an awful lot. It was a great run. And I'm not sure. Is it worth it, looking back 25 years, to have one? Doesn't change our lives in any way. But it probably changes the player's life. That's about it.
Yeah, they're no more the joke of you lose like the Bills and all that. To Sal's point, so sometimes I hear people who aren't from around here reference the Bills as losers. But my memory of the Bills is almost every big game them winning. Do you know what? The Super Bowls are almost just like a separate entity. But I just think of going to Miami for the championship games and then smacking the Dolphins and somehow figuring out a way to beat Denver and crushing the Raiders. Big games, big game, big games. The regular games, they always seem to come through.
And they were the best team. I mean, at that time, the NFC, I thought, was loaded. You had the Niners, you had the Cowboys, you had the Redskins. The AFC, if you remember at that time, you still had Marino, but Joe Montana comes over to Kansas City at the end of his career. The Steelers were just starting to get good around 92, 93. So even if they won that first one, just the way the landscape was in the AFC, they would have gotten back to at least one, if not two more.
Yeah, John's right. At that time, the AFC was definitely down, and the Bills took advantage of it. The Bills were by far the best team in the conference, but it was a down time for the AFC, and the Bills really jumped on it. My first 4 years on the beat, 4 Super Bowls in a row. So I was thinking, man, this is something.
And
But
the Houston Oilers game didn't sell out. The
Oilers
big
game
comeback
did not
at home.
sit out, and we were writing the epitaph for the run at halftime that day.
Keep in mind how that ended, too, because the Bills were expected to win the division. Then they got beat in Houston. That's when Kelly got hurt. All of a sudden, turn around, they're in a wild card game, and they're at home, which was part of the reason why that game didn't sell out. Plus, there was a little, they keep winning fatigue, but they can't win the big game.
The biggest surprise of that year, the comeback was amazing, but when they went to Pittsburgh the next week and blew them out, that was a surprise.
Still with
and then
Frank Reich at quarterback.
Then you knew something was going on here.
Oh, the good old days. Well, look, we'll bring it back to the present when the original Rochester Press Box continues. Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko with you, Super Bowl 49. John, what do you expect to see later on this afternoon?
Listen, I didn't expect a 43-8 beatdown last year when Seattle beat up on Peyton Manning and the Broncos. I don't expect a lot of points. I think if you're Seattle, for them to win something low 20s, I see a 27-24 type of game. If Seattle can run the ball effectively with Marshawn Lynch, that'll open things up for Russell Wilson. Well, if I'm the Patriots, stopping Lynch or containing Wilson. I'm more concerned about containing Russell Wilson. I really am, because I think for Seattle to win, he needs to have a big game. And you look at that Seattle defense, can they contain Gronk? That's the one guy. I don't worry about Edelman. I don't worry about Amendola. I don't even worry about Blunt. Gronk's the guy who could kill them each to keep drives alive. He's their big play guy.
Mike, what are we going to see Sunday?
You usually don't go to this when it comes to a Super Bowl, but I'm big on the most desperate team theory. And without a question, the Patriots are. If you can be a desperate team in the Super Bowl, they are. It's about legacies. Mm-hmm. It's about a 2 Super Bowl losing streak. It's about Brady possibly losing a third. And there's, add in all the other stuff that's gone on. And Seattle won last year. They're coming back this year. I'm not saying it's unexpected, but it's tough to get back, especially after you win. There's a lot of things that go with it. They had that little edge last year. They reminded me a year ago more of like that first Cowboys team that beat the Bills. Arrogant, cocky, and then just came in and blew the Bills out. Seattle did. I think Seattle loses a bit of that edge in this game, and I think New England is going to actually control the game. I think they're going to control the game. I think they're going to get a lead. They're going to make Russell Wilson maybe not into what John's team did to him when he's behind, but it's a lot tougher game to play when you're down 7 or 14 points. And I think New England controls the game and wins it by 7 to 10 points.
Jeez, I don't think we'll ever see Russell Wilson look worse than he did in that first half against the Packers.
No way.
Where are you going with this?
Well, I disagree with the legacy. I think New England's legacy is secure. Win or lose, you don't go to 6 Super Bowls in, what has it been, 12, 13 years, win 3 of them. Yeah, this would be their 3rd loss in a row. But like we just talked about with the Bills, I think the Bills have a pretty decent legacy. It's damaged, of course, because they didn't win. But everyone remembers that team. I think the Patriots' legacy is fine. I don't get into all that stuff.
You don't listen to his show. He gets a lot of callers that say, this ruins them.
It doesn't ruin them at all. And they're going to be back next year. They're going to be just as good next year. Yeah. I don't worry about that. As far as the game, though, I sort of disagree with John. I think the Seattle will do all it can to take Gronkowski out of the game. And this is where Belichick, being the coach that he is, will find a way to get those little gnats, Edelman and Amendola involved. And those are the guys that I think that could do damage to Seattle, because they're going to do all they can to get Gronk out of the way, and they'll probably, gang up on Blunt.
How they
those
call
little
the
guys.
Game. Because Edelman and Amendola will not be allowed off the line. I'm interested to see how they call the game, because that could affect what Sal's saying. Then those guys will get open if they call it tight.
Look, I disagree with Sal about the whole thing about their legacy. Because you're in rarefied air here. You're the 49ers, you're the Steelers, all the great teams. They will have not won one in a decade. You go back to Spygate, all the things that go with them, not able to win. 3 times in Arizona, not winning. And I'm not saying it takes away from the rest, but you would now have not been able to come through and do that again. And you better believe, Bill Belichick is a guy who knows the history of the league. Tom Brady, again, you're talking about him being with the all-time greats. His hero, Joe Montana, who never lost one, losing 3 in a row. I think that plays into it. And an angry Brady is a good Brady. And I think he's going to play angry.
I take him all the way back to the beginning because I grew up with the Patriots, the Gino Capoletti, the AFL years. But I feel, as a guy who's been close to this team, I feel like New England's all in on this. I feel this is all in on this game.
I absolutely agree with that.
Whatever else happens from this point on doesn't matter. And I think sort of in Mike's camp, legacy, everything, it's all in this game for them.
By the way, I'm picking the Patriots. I think the Patriots are the better team.
Oh, that's right. I want quickly.
I think I'm with Mike. I think it's going to be a touchdown type of game. I think Brady is going to play well.
Patriots 28-24.
All right, I like it.
Close.
I think.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Like it or not, when we finish. This segment of the Rochester Press Box is brought to you by the Distillery. 4 convenient locations, the Distillery, your choice destination for Sunday brunch with great food and drink specials, plus all of the games. The Distillery, a Best of Rochester award winner. Tap into good times at the Distillery. Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box, our Like It or Not segment brought to you by our friends at the Distillery. Big Super Bowl party for them, opening up at 11 o'clock, playing right throughout the afternoon. 2-for-1 margaritas and Bloody Marys, my personal favorite. Drink specials all night, and a great place. Special appetizers from Sunday through Thursday after 9 at half price. It's the signature bar in Rochester. Sal, like it or not, Robert Kraft goes to bat for his guys.
Yeah, I kind of like this. Get ahead of it. I mean, the Patriots got beat up all week. There's no doubt about it. Now, whether they're guilty or not, who really knows? I think the whole thing was blown so far out of proportion it drove me nuts. After the first day I was sick, let alone, we're 2 weeks into it now. But yeah, I like that Kraft jumped on this, and I think his team did get beaten up a bit too much, especially if it ends up that nothing actually happened. So good for him. I'm all for it.
He makes himself culpable, though. I mean,
he's going down with the ship.
He better. Sure. I mean, he's going to go down with the ship. But
he didn't have to, though.
For him
he doesn't do that. He could sit there and just let it play out.
For him to say all that stuff, I got to believe that they did a pretty thorough internal investigation. Now, again, people can laugh at that with the Patriots because they have a history. Yeah. But for him to put himself on the line like that, they must have known that we got it covered. Nothing happened here.
He pointed his finger at Roger Goodell, his so-called friend. I'm the boss. Just remember who's commissioner here. It's not you, it's me. That's what I took from it. He pointed his finger at Roger Goodell with that.
It's not going to go away till it goes away.
No, I'm with you. I think he fired that shot out there. And I don't know. Again, they may be telling the truth in the fact that they didn't do anything specifically, but I find it hard to believe that something didn't happen.
Mike, like it or not, the Marshawn Lynch performance.
Look, here's my take on Marshawn Lynch. He can do what he wants, say what he wants, and some people think it's cute, and nobody's going to feel sorry for any of us doing interviews. But here's the way I look at it. I think I think fans are a little disingenuous when it comes to this. Everybody that likes football and likes the way Marshawn runs, they all love Marshawn. Beast mode, he runs people over and all that kind of stuff. The truth is it better for us if he does an interview? Sometimes, yeah. But the real truth is, we'll go on to the next person. We don't need Marshawn Lynch. You need him for the 2 minutes. If you're Marshawn Lynch and you, for your life and for going forward and for everything else about you, you should take advantage of this platform that you have. Now, in some ways, I guess he may, but in another way, you have this opportunity that a lot of people would enjoy having. A young African-American man, I heard Rodney Harrison talk about it, say he's ruining an opportunity that he has that a lot of guys didn't have years ago. You got a platform there to use it. He chooses not to. But when I say fans are disingenuous, it's because you care about Marshawn Lynch because he's running over people and he's great. So when Marshawn's injured or done or whenever his career's over, you don't care about him anymore. And that's the point that I think. If this guy was worried about himself and his future, he might think a little bigger picture. That's not Marshawn. That's who he is. But as a public who doesn't like the media, you'll chew him up and spit him out too once he's no longer beast mode
Think
and a
you'll
great
ever
player.
be sorry? I mean, in 10 years from now, does
Who,
Marshawn Lynch look
No.
back and say, why was I such an idiot?
I will say, I think that man lives with zero regret. You look at how he was brought up. I think this guy just he will run his life the way he has always run his life. That's just the way he is. I've read so many articles on the guy. I'm not surprised now that he is perceived as a knucklehead, just considering how he has been brought up, how he's grown up. He's had a tough life. I'm not denying that. I don't care if he talks. I could care less. I really don't. He
That's
wins the
your own
MVP
business.
today, and he's got to say, I'm
I
going to
know.
Disney World. Can't wait for that. That could be priceless.
He ain't
That
going
could
to
be
Disney
priceless.
World. Disney World's not sending Marshawn Lynch.
To me, with all those little kids, I hope if Seattle wins, he's the MVP.
Yeah,
just for that moment.
Well, there's no guarantee.
This portion of the Rochester Press Box brought to you by our friends at the Distillery. Unfinished business when we return.
And you don't need to be Native American to realize it is offensive. And it's not politically correct. It's the right thing to do.
He was an idiot for throwing him that pitch. The guy's phenomenal. He had no reason to give him anything, especially a fastball to hit.
It's simply that these two guys, Ronaldo and Tom Brady, are too good looking.
I like it, just don't admit to it.
Everybody wants to hate on the best in the world. You know, he's here to stay, and he wants to build something big time.
The bottom line is, still nobody's going to like A-Rod.
Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box. Time for Unfinished Business. John.
Well, earlier in the show, we talked about the legacy for the Patriots and Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Let's go on the other side. Let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks legacy. They could become just the 7th franchise to win back-to-back Super Bowls. 6 teams have repeated. Every one of those quarterbacks who repeated are in the Hall of Fame or soon to be. That would be Tom Brady. Seattle's defense, the elite defense, what they have done the last 2 years in an era where it's all one-sided in terms of the offense, can take their place. I'm not saying with the 85 Bears, but they would be certainly in the conversation. You've got the 2000 Ravens. You can go back to the 76 Pittsburgh Steelers, some of the great defenses of all time. So a lot is on the line, not only for the Patriots, but for the Seahawks. Quarterback Russell Wilson could beat Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in back-to-back Super Bowls. And Seattle's defense can take their place with some of the elite defenses of all time. You beat Manning and Brady back-to-back, your legacy is secure.
Yeah, and he still has his whole future ahead of him, too.
That Seattle defense, to me, maybe the best defense we've seen since the 2000 Ravens.
Sal.
I stayed out of the Marshawn Lynch discussion a few minutes ago because I have a take of my own. Marshawn Lynch, to me, is basically an ingrate. I can't stand the guy. I don't like his act. I think this whole Super Bowl nonsense, if I was out there in Phoenix covering this game, I would not even gone near Marshawn Lynch's table. I don't know why in the media, why we shone the spotlight on this guy. You know he's going to embarrass you. He embarrassed the media yesterday, on Tuesday, with his act, and it's deplorable. Further, I cannot believe companies like Progressive Insurance and Skittles pay this guy to be a spokesman for them, for all his antics that he's done on the field and off the field, and the way he acts. I can't believe these companies think it's worth it to let him be the face of their organization. Marshawn Lynch is the kind of guy that doesn't belong in the NFL, and I wish he would retire as soon as possible.
But how do you really feel?
I can't stand guys like this. I really, because you said it off the air there. We are the conduit to the fans. The fans and the sponsors pay this guy's salary, and he treats us like dirt, which means he treats the sponsors like dirt and the fans like dirt. There's no place in the NFL or any sports league for a guy with that kind of
He
attitude.
plays hard, and I think that's what fans
Great
care about.
player.
As long as you play hard.
Great player, bad guy.
You want, by the way, you want to be a player and not talk to the media? Just be a poor interview. You don't have to be a jerk.
Bill Belichick can have his moments, too.
Oh, I agree with
Bill
you.
Belichick can sit up there and mumble and say, really? You're the face of the franchise? You sound like you're illiterate when he's up there talking. But we think he's eccentric. We call Marshawn Lynch an ingrate. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I'm just saying, you see the dichotomy there.
Yeah.
I think back to the Super Bowls and different memories, and we talked about our Bills memories. I go back to being a little kid watching the Super Bowl, being an NFL fan and being so upset that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to beat the Vikings and go and win that Super Bowl, and the great NFL was going to lose early on. But those are the kind of things that got the Super Bowl to be big. And then I think about getting the opportunity to go to the '85 Bears Super Bowl when they crushed the Patriots, and then going to the 4 with the Bills, and the way this thing has grown and grown. And my best memory was more than a decade ago now, and I got to take my dad to see the Eagles play the Patriots. And that was a great Patriots team. We had a ball. It was something to be able to say I went that way as a fan. It's gotten big. It's gotten huge. It's gotten bigger than everything now. And I kind of liked it back the way it was a little bit before when it was still more about the game. But it does bring more people in, which I think in general can be a really good thing for the sport if the NFL doesn't find a way to screw it up. And sometimes they do. And sometimes they do things that make it not what it should be. But I have a lot of great memories about the Super Bowl, and I hope we have another great one today.
I love your dad's stories.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
Character assassination is kind of a tricky business. We're paid, some of us here are paid for our opinions, and we have a different tolerance for calling people liars. I think it was easy for us to agree that O.J. Simpson probably did what he was accused of. Somewhere in between there falls this whole thing with the New England Patriots and these deflated footballs. It leaves me with one question, and I don't know where my own tolerance, but I have not come out and called these guys liars, as so many other people have, is what happens really if the Patriots are found to actually be telling the truth. We want to thank our sponsors, friends at the Distillery, and of course Channel 13 for putting us on the air, quality sports program. Thanks to John Ditullio.
Billy, enjoy the game, buddy. Good stuff.
Mike Catalana.
Thank you.
And it wouldn't be the Super Bowl without Sal.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Sal. Thanks. Thank you. We'll see you next week on the original Rochester Press Box.